Doug McCants.
Cindy Keeping.
Dallas Hanbury.
Carol King.
Brian Mann.
Just like to remind everyone that the Historic Preservation Commission is a 9-member body. Each one of us is appointed by the council, and we serve at the pleasure of the council, in fact. And our job is to monitor and preserve the historic, aesthetic, and architectural value of artifacts in the city of Montgomery. To our other commissioners, you have before you the minutes of our last meeting. The chair will now entertain a motion for the adoption of those minutes.
I move we accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the minutes of the last meeting. Is there any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands. Motion carried. Thank you so very much. As we look at our agenda, we have action for approval for the June 11, 2019 meeting, which we have just done, and we have a restoration of the month, 740 Felder Avenue. Any comments?
It's a lovely home,
It's a lovely home.
and it's come a long way. And I was very happy to attend a recent landmarks event there. I believe it was a restoration open house. The family looks very happy there, and I believe they have a lot of children. There were quite a few bedrooms. As the head of the Old Cloverdale Association, I'd like to say we're very happy with renovations such as this in our neighborhood.
Who nominated this for restoration of the month?
Me.
You did. Would you like to make a couple of comments also?
The Prices have worked long and hard on this particular house. They've lived in several neighborhoods and chose this particular structure because they do have a lot of kids, and they saw a lot of potential in it. It did take several years, but it's a really nice quality piece of work. They did finish it about 3 or 4 months ago, but the yard was a little bit of a hold up too, so we waited on the restoration of the month until they had actually completed the landscape.
It looks wonderful.
As well, so.
I believe they changed their minds a couple of times about their driveway. And they had altered the materials. It looks fantastic, and I would
Yeah.
hope that 742 would be a restoration of the month in the future, because it is next door and also quite lovely.
Oh, 728.
Is it 748? Okay, I
28.
stand corrected.
That's a good idea.
Do we have some additional photographs of 740 Felder Avenue we can show the audience? We have them in our minutes, our package. Do we have them available?
He's got it before
Very good.
before the back, and then and after of the finished front
I must say that
streetscape.
when I was looking for a home in Old Cloverdale, there was an old listing for this home on either Zillow or Realtor. And I must say this house has come a very long way.
Okay, any other comments? 740 Felder Avenue.
How many bedrooms does it have?
How much?
I'd say probably
Four or five.
I'm not real sure exactly. It's a pretty full upstairs.
I believe it had a master downstairs and maybe 4 up.
4 up, something like
Wow.
that.
I love what they did to the
It's
back.
very kid-proof.
Yeah. I mean, they really gave
What,
us.
we need to
Let me look at
nominate?
that. That's
Yes.
the back.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going
That's
to
the back.
make sure everybody gets a chance to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, they exposed. Look at that.
Any other comments, observations? Okay, the chair will now entertain a motion for nomination.
I move that 740 Felder Avenue be our restoration of the month for July 2019.
It'll be for August.
Excuse me, August 2019.
Okay? Is there a second?
I second.
Any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands. Motion carried. Thank you very much. And As you see in your package for this afternoon, let's keep our eyes open for a restoration of the candidates to submit for consideration. In fact, the more we recognize these restorations, the more people, I think, will have an interest in restoring property around the town. So let's just keep that in mind. Moving on to our vacant property discussion. Any comments? The one that we had last month?
Well, we certainly did have a large attendance of in the audience last week, so this is an issue that really hits home with a lot of citizens.
Has anyone received any kind of feedback at all since the meeting for June regarding vacant properties? Anyone received any kind of feedback? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I had a person who was present ask me, well, what kind of determination or decision did we make about that particular discussion going forward? I say, at this point, you know, the conversation has practically stopped, but hopefully we can continue, or maybe even have some additional meetings in neighborhoods that are directly affected. And I think that in itself would be, excuse me, a continuation, and I think there's a lot of interest in this city in particular with respect to revitalization, stabilization, neighborhood stabilization, and any other efforts to help improve the quality of life in these neighborhoods. And it certainly has gotten pretty much rock bottom. And I know it because I look for it. I visit these neighborhoods, somewhat close to me, and a lot of it surrounds my area. This has been a negligence based on what Mr. Carr said for some 30 years, and he's absolutely correct. And I didn't just notice it either, but it's just getting to the point where I think it's too important to continue to overlook these neighborhoods that are just going down, down, down. Because the worst thing that occurs is that people, you know, it affects their quality of life and the price of the land and the value of the homes. But when the land values go down, then nobody wants to invest in a neighborhood, you know, in that situation that has gone to those depths. And these are the issues that I think that creates the worst scenario or narrative for the future, because there is not any there aren't any efforts to try and curtail or change or improve these neighborhoods. And I think this is a discussion that the next mayor will have to certainly face and deal with. People are just tired, and they want some of the beauty that's in other parts of the city where people are investing. We just heard about the 5 or 6 stores that's coming to East Chase Parkway. And people wonder, so well, they invested all that money out there. Why aren't we getting some of that money? Well, it has a lot to do with the direction that and the interest that the city and the council itself are taking, you know, to improve these or make things make the atmosphere or something, improve it. And if you change, in other words, if you change your attitude and the efforts of the city, if they get really serious about it, I refer you to what Mayor Wolfen does and had decided to do in Birmingham. He gave $1.2 or $4 million, and he said that, well, this is going to be one neighborhood at a time. Well, it would be very interesting to see if we could make some commitment in that regard. Of course, you can't do every neighborhood, and the city certainly is not their responsibility to do anything but try and create an atmosphere and bring in people and developers who would be interested in doing some of these things, but there's things that the city can do. They were supposed to start work on South Court Street from Fairview to the Southern Bypass somewhere around the 1st of June. Well, this is, we way up into July, and nothing has taken place. And you can't keep promising people things and then you renege or nothing happens, nothing changes, and that just creates more animosity and bewilderment, and people just tired of being promised things that never happen. And I'm sure it's going to happen because there are federal dollars involved. But this is the second or third time that they were promised that they're going to start doing some work on that street. And of course, they got to do the entire street, cityscape, and et cetera. But my point is, we're going to have to do better, and the city and the county included. We're just going to have to find some means to come together to try and start making some changes in these communities, and that's going to include the citizens that live in these communities. And these homes, not doing us any good to keep tearing them down, because all that does is create a no man's land, empty space, overgrown, and we just can't keep going at this pace. So that's pretty much what.
Okay. Anyone else regarding our vacant property discussion from last month? Anyone else? Okay. All right. We again want to thank Mr. Carr for taking the time to come and give us some pointers on it. We'd like to thank the people from the community who came out also to that meeting around the corner in the city council chambers. Attendance issues. The bylaws of HPC state the following: any member failing to attend 50% or more of the regularly scheduled meetings may be requested to resign by the chairman of the commission upon a majority vote of the members. Members of the commission may also be removed for cause by the city council. Discussion. Any discussion?
We have a member who meets this criteria. I believe this item was on the agenda last month that was laid upon the table. Mr. Walter Bush has failed to meet the attendance expectations of this group. It is very difficult to function as a body, an important body of city government, if we struggle to reach a quorum. It's also difficult when we do reach a quorum that we have to have unanimous vote on issues due to the fact we may only have 5 of our 9 members present. Tonight we have 6, so if we want to conduct any business, we have to have 5 of 6. Did I count right?
Yeah.
Last month we had 5. In recent months we've only had 5. So it's very difficult to function. We need somebody to fill the vacant seat. I say vacant, it's full, but we need someone who will come to the meetings, participate, and be counted on to vote when called upon to do so. So, is there... Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
I'd like to move that the matter that was tabled at the June 2019 meeting regarding the failure to comply with the attendance expectations of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Montgomery be removed from the table and placed before us for a vote.
Christian, did we ever get any kind of response at all?
No,
No response?
none.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, do we have to take this before the council, or can we make that determination and remove that individual based on our votes present today?
Well, according to what we just read from the bylaws, any person who does not, any member who does not attend at least 50% of the meetings may be asked to resign by the chairman of the commission upon a majority vote of the members.
What we did in the last instance was notified the board member that they did not meet the attendance requirements and that their resignation was requested and that the council person who appointed them was being asked to replace them. And then we sent a letter to the councilman stating the same thing and what action was required on their part. It didn't yield any action on the part of the council person, so we still do have a vacancy on this board, but that is how we ran it through last time.
So,
Will it be a different council person that'll be notified about this particular member of the committee?
I can't remember which district this is in.
so are we at an impasse unless the
No, I mean, it's up to y'all to decide if you want to remove it from the table and then make a motion to vote on requesting the resignation, and then we will proceed with notifying all the parties of what the decision of this body was.
Okay, is everybody clear on where we are?
So you have a motion on the table
Yes,
to
you have a motion
remove
on the
it
table.
from the table and put it before the board.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any unreadiness? All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by a show of hands.
To put this back on to vote.
Correct.
We're voting on the motion to
Yes.
vote, okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay, motion carried. Okay.
How did, Mr. McCants?
Let's raise your hand again.
Aye.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we follow the same procedure that we did the last time this issue was before our board, that we authorize the proper person to send a notice or a letter to Walter Bush asking for him to resign or to begin attending more than 50% of our meetings, and otherwise follow the procedure we did the last time.
Okay, the last time, Christie was kind enough to write a letter for the chairman's signature, and the chairman signed the letter, and Christie mailed the letter. So this will be our repeat procedure. So this is what we're talking about, all right? Are we
Nobody
clear?
should be treated differently. These
Right.
problems come up before, and I think we ought to address it the way that was done before.
Right. Okay? Everybody on the same page? Doug? You're on the same page?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Good enough.
So you have a motion.
All those in favor?
You
let
need
me-
a second.
Somebody, you seconded, didn't you?
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, she seconded.
She's, okay.
All right. Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands.
Second vote?
Okay.
I'd like to abstain, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, one abstention, okay? Good enough. All right.
Motion carries.
Standing to.
Committee reports. So Christie, when you get the letter ready,
I'll let you know.
I'll come by and pick it up, all right? Revamping the historic sign program.
We don't really have anything to report other than we are considering lots of different, no decisions, in other words. We've resurfaced it and been working on it. It's a really touchy subject, I think, in the neighborhood, so we really need to make sure that we get it right.
I'm not on the committee anymore, but I hope I don't step on any toes right now when I say this, but I think we ought to reinstate the program that we had until you decide to change it. The ownership of mid-state advertising has changed. There's no conflict anymore. Hasn't it changed?
It changed.
Oh, it
March
will change
3rd.
when he leaves the council.
Right.
Yes.
Which happens when?
November.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misquoted. Archleaf does own it. I'm getting ahead of myself, it's been a long day. But I withdraw my comments if I can. Let me pull them back from the YouTube.
Well, I mean, revisited that design, we looked at a lot of other different types as well.
I just know it's probably frustrating.
It's a
We've been
while, yeah.
suspended for,
Yeah,
what,
no.
a year or
About-
more?
At least. It's
That
probably
way.
been
And I
closer
bet
to
you
two.
get a lot of requests.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do-
Well,
I have
she's got a
been-
few
I
standing.
have.
Yeah.
Hasn't Mr. Lee offered to do it for free?
He said if we had one every now and again, that was one thing, but to continue, because the way they did the signs in the past was we would prepay for like 50 or 100 blanks of each, the historic building, historic district, and they would do it's like a 3-color screening process, and then when we had someone petition, they would do the lettering for the house and the date on it then.
Right.
So we paid for them in advance, so they ran a whole bunch. I think he doesn't want to run a whole bunch of them.
Right.
But might be able to do, said he could do one every now and again. But yes, that relationship changes. The other thing that I have looked at is that Mobile issues their signs twice a year. They have a banner and shield award event, and twice a year they issue signs versus once a month. And
I never
don't-
thought about that being
Yeah, so
like a public
that's
event.
kind of part of the consideration. I mean, do we revamp the whole thing, not just the sign, not just the material? It is 52 plus years old. The design itself is.
And it's the same that Landmarks uses,
Right,
which is
yeah,
part of the issue.
right. So it's not, I don't think it's an easy thing. We got a lot of,
Now, I mean, we could still go with the same kind of metal sign and
Right,
do
just a different
something a little
design.
different. I've got money in the budget this year
right.
for graphic design, but we need to know what we're asking a graphic designer to give us a price on,
I do
or
think,
give them some direction.
I think we could commit to having something by next meeting for consideration.
Okay?
I think, of course, you were up to $50, right?
Hmm?
You up, the price was $50?
We were at
48.
40.
Okay.
We were at 40.
So I think everything we've looked at so far is a considerable increase, and our constituency or our market are used to something, too. So that's really something for us to consider, too.
I just had a random thought. Is there any reason you couldn't have options for signage if somebody wanted a lower price and then somebody wanted to go for the gusto and there be more than one option?
As long as y'all design multiple options at multiple price points, I don't see why there couldn't be.
I know my frustration when I was on the committee was I wanted something that was going to last about as long as my house has lasted.
Right.
And I don't see that little tin sign I put on the side of my house lasting
They fade.
that long.
Fade
And
real
having
bad.
gone to
Right.
Savannah and Charleston and seeing things that will last hundreds.
And it
Years.
could be that there is a metal placard, it could be that there is a cast resin option, and
Right.
that there's a cast metal option.
Right.
I don't know.
But some of the things we were looking at were, several $100s. And I think we kind of have to keep in mind, that not everybody in a historic district will be able to afford that. Too, so.
I've been pleasantly surprised how well my little tin signs held up. It gets direct sunlight every day and it really hasn't faded in 3 years.
Well, I think the materials have improved too, since we first began getting them done. Mine lasted about 20 years, but that's still pretty good. I think we can commit to having something for the next meeting.
Any questions for the committee people? Any questions?
Well, I don't think anyone's going to pay for a sign that's going to last as long as the house. We're talking about, like you said, several $100s. I mean, if it lasts 10 years and if the person it may not even, that got the sign may not even still be at that address, and if so, they can always get another if they, cherish the sign, so. I just think we should keep it at around $50. That's not my call, but keep it so that people can afford to buy it, and in other words, just don't put it in a high price bracket where, I'm pretty sure most people could probably afford it. That's working could afford to pay $100, but they may be unwilling. So $50, I think, would be, as far as I'm concerned, would be a reasonable amount.
And the cost of the sign, we didn't make anything off of it. I mean, we were charging what we were being charged to produce them. So that's, to some extent, whether or not that $50 threshold is still going to be the bottom of the available signage is out of our hands.
That's true.
But
Is this an ARB issue? Will it need to be approved by the ARB? You don't
no,
think so?
this is entirely promotional by the HPC.
Okay.
Has no bearing on anything ARB does.
Well, I was just thinking since it goes on the front of the house.
We don't review
not
the
something-
placement of putting these signs on houses.
Any other comments? Okay, let us thank the committee people for the revamping sign program report. Preservation leadership class.
I have no report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody has a question for any member of that committee?
I guess we don't have a report because,
Carol's been in Scotland.
Carol's been collecting ideas in Scotland, and it's July, and so we've got a big span of time before this happens again.
Sure.
So.
Sure. But I do think it's appropriate at this point to once again just say how much we appreciate the preservation leadership class.
It was awesome.
It really was. I think we're off to a good start.
I think one of the things we've kind of talked about informally is there's a lot of content to cover, and maybe kind of doing years that are more targeted towards a particular theme, or hands-on workshops, or we just can't cover everything
No.
at once in 8
No.
weeks or whatever it is.
No.
Or I should say, Christy can't cover everything in 8 weeks. Not
But-
we.
Yeah. But here again to the working committee, Dallas Hembury, Brian Mann, and Carol King, this body is, and to Christy, this body is deeply appreciative of what you all did to make the preservation leadership class a real success. 2020 awards.
I wanted to add to the comments on the preservation leadership class that I liked the T-shirt very much, and it went missing. And on Sunday afternoon, I discovered my stepdaughter was wearing my preservation leadership T-shirt. So they're even popular with the young people. So.
Christy, by the way, if someone wants another T-shirt, is there any way a
Nope,
person can
they're
get one?
gone. I cleaned out my cube and I gave them all away.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did.
Okay, all right.
Next year.
Next year, okay. All right, 2020 awards.
Collect them all. We'll have a
Alright.
different design, and
Yeah.
you'll wanna
point.
you wanna
Right.
collect them all.
Okay, 2020 awards.
We too have not met because we have a little bit of time.
I put this on here more as a question of, do the people who were involved this year want to continue? Do anybody else want to step up? Just something to think about.
I'm cool with staying there. How about you, Ben?
Okay, any,
I'll help again this year. I mean,
all right,
I took a year off.
okay, very good.
And
Any
I-
other
I-
comments
and I
regarding the
think-
2020 awards?
And I think I solicited a number of applications. I sent them to people who I knew had finished projects, and most of them responded. So I think that
That's the angle.
that's, well,
That helps.
it's helping us get some momentum, because the previous year we had 4, and we scraped. We kind of made 2 of those up at the last minute, so we didn't have 2. And this year we had 15.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So And some of them were completely out of the blue. So it wasn't just the ones that were solicited, but I do have a running list of projects to keep up with.
Okay.
Well, I think the word got out a little bit fairly well this year too, but going back through who had ARB approved and all of those projects really helped a lot.
Like I said, when things come up that really have a component that we've been looking for, I've got a list.
Okay, any other comments regarding the 2020 awards? At our August meeting, I will have a map showing city annexation, and I'd like to invite the public to stop by our meeting in August if you have any question or interest in when your neighborhood was annexed into the city of Montgomery. We'll have this big map, and we'll have it at the meeting for August if you have an interest in knowing when your neighborhood was annexed into the city. Is there anything else? Christian, do you have anything else for us?
Oh, the only thing I want to throw out is if you didn't see your email today, I suggested that we look at the kind of what Historic England did with the write a love letter to a building in Montgomery, where we might solicit some, like the new mayor, and to get some kind of higher profile folks to write something this fall or over the winter, and have those to roll out in February, and maybe work with the advertiser or independent to do a weekly feature of a love letter and solicit other responses. So just something to think about. Draw attention to things people might not pay attention to.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Does any member have anything you would like to bring to our attention? Anything you have going on that you would like to bring to our attention?
Just to clarify, the love letter, that's where you show an appreciation for a particular building, what you like about it. Is that what you're...
It could be what you like about the building. It could be why that building means something to you. I might write a letter about the Carriage House on Dunbar, which is in a historic district, and it's a historic building, but that's where I met my husband. It could be...
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, I appreciate the architecture of this so much, but just historic things that have meaning to people for whatever reason.
Could it be a park?
Sure.
Cool. Yep, Paul.
I think it's a good place-making,
Yeah.
project. Very good place-making.
That is.
I believe that Mary Ann Neely Park is now completed.
Looks good.
They had the installation of the marble slab with her with the biography of her life. Is that you could fit on a marble slab. So that's very good news.
Anything else? Anyone got something programmed you want to bring to our attention?
Dr. Bailey, it's July in Montgomery. We're in the low part of the season. It's a little too hot to be doing much of anything.
It is hot now.
It is
That's
hot.
for sure.
Midnight.
Okay. That being said, no further business. I'd like to thank Ms. Christie
Mr.
Anderson, Ms.
Chairman.
Paula Wade. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, again, to get back to perhaps having a meeting in the neighborhoods, they generally have their meetings on Tuesdays as well. We can also maybe consider having this body perhaps take a tour with a little press coverage, and to kind of bring out or at least show our concern and perhaps awaken the rest of the city if we can get some of the news people to follow us around as a group, and with the sole purpose of just not exposing, but that's for lack of a better word, let's just stay with that, and show that we have some concern about that, and as a body, and that's part of our responsibilities anyway. As I mentioned, all these neighborhoods are historic because they're all more than 50 years old, more than 60 years old. So I just think that's something we may want to deal with later in the year. Of course, not in the summer, it's too hot, but perhaps we may want to consider that no, January. I think before the weather actually changes completely, because I want them to see the no man land, how the overgrowth, you know, the leaves will have not fallen yet, so we may consider that late September. Anyway, we can kick it around at another time, but I just think that's something we might want to consider, just to popularize the issue. It's already popular in certain areas, but in fact, it's aggravating in some certain areas, but it will give us a little more exposure as well. And we are a city commission, so I think it wouldn't hurt us to do something on that scale.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? No further business. This meeting hereby adjourned.